When you're playing Corsair Cove, at the beginning, the one thing you really don't think about is logistics and the pathing of your fetchers. And that is a huge problem because over time you will realize that your fetchers, aka the NPCs which are transporting your resources from A to B, take longer and longer, and your whole production line is falling apart. And with that, well, basically at some point, your whole pirate town is falling apart because it takes minutes and minutes till your resources go from A to B. Because in this game, resources do not just teleport. And the problem is manifold why this happens, and thankfully, there are also a lot of things you can actually do to fix it. So let's talk about the problems first. The problem is that the game is also lulling you into a false feeling of, oh, logistics, yeah, that doesn't matter. I mean, at the beginning, I'm just building all my buildings close to each other, and that's fine, right? Yeah, it is, till you are then starting to expand your pirate cove, and then you will see the first cracks, or you will ignore them, and then after 10 hours, when you are slowly but surely taking over the whole island, you realize, oh shoot, I screwed this up. And the reason for that is, as I said, like every character has to run from A to B. And with production buildings, that's still relatively easy to manage. You can just click on the building and you see the pathways, right? I did that just here with the galley. And as long as it is green, fantastic. You did everything right. If it's already yellow, that means, whoa, that's not great. You should probably do something about that. And if it turns red, well, that means, well, shit. You have screwed up big time and you really want to fix that, right? So make sure that your production buildings are relatively close to each other. And you can see that right here. Like at the beginning, it's super simple, right? You have your woodcutter, they're producing your logs, then they transform them into a sawmill, or send them to a sawmill, and they're getting transformed into planks. That's the right sentence. And that's that, right? You now have planks, you can utilize them to build more. But the moment you realize that they're actually far higher production chains you have to think about, things are becoming a little bit more complicated. You can see that right here. This is where I started my powder mill because I needed black powder. And you need quite a bit of stuff to make this happen. You have guano, so you need a guano gatherer. Then you need a char burner. The char burner needs hardwood and also stone. So that means you also need a quarry and you need a woodcutter. Of course, you could not put a woodcutter here, you could not put a quarry here, and you could just transport the stone and the wood from over there. The problem is, every time you are now producing something over there, they have to take the whole way over here, and that takes literally minutes. So what you want to do first and foremost is to make sure that when you're expanding your pirate haven is to make sure that all the production buildings are nearby. But what happens if you can't do that for various reasons? Well, there are of course solutions to that. First, build warehouses. If you cannot guarantee that all your stuff is nearby, build a warehouse. It helps a ton. Now, I say that, and you of course all know that building warehouses uh, indefinitely, especially at the beginning, is just impossible because warehouses do cost coin. And so you have to be quite careful how you're utilizing your coin and the basically two warehouses you have at the beginning. But believe me, they're worth the money and they will help you a great deal. And then, of course, later on, if you have secured your coin income, which I will make another video about in the foreseeable future, you can just start to build more and more warehouses over your island. And that's the easiest way to, well, just, have always a little bit of production resources somewhere lying around and you don't overstrain your fetchers. Because keep in mind, every fetcher is an NPC, and those fetchers are being taken from your pirate pool you probably need for your ship, you probably need for your production buildings. So you want to use at least fetchers as possible and as fast as possible. Because as I said, they run from A to B. And not only do they run to the position where they have to go, they also have to come back. Like you can see it right here. And this leads us to the second point. This dude is coming from the stonecutter, right? And he is running over there to build the small gun tower. Now, that's not really a long path. That's not a problem. This takes what? 30 seconds. Sure, not amazing, but completely doable and not a big deal. But just a minute ago, there was another building they were building, and there was this one right here, the powder mill. And that also needed, well, stone. So they had to run from over here, this whole path to this building to bring over the resources. That's not good. That's not what you want. That's horrible. That is like a big mistake, and that is what will bring down your pirate empire the longer you play. Because, well, let's talk about paths. So, paths are super duper important. And as I said, at the beginning, everything is close by. You will not think too much about it. But there is also an in game feature which is working a little bit against you. So, what you want to do is you want to go under settings, right? Then on the gameplay, and then you will find the feature which is on. I already turned it off. That is automatic structure connection. Turn that off. What is this doing? Well, every time you connect a building, right, it would normally automatically connect the connections wherever they can. I have now deactivated that, and it's not doing that anymore. Wait. Why would I do that? Isn't that amazing? Isn't this an amazing quality of life feature that I do not have to build the connections myself? Yes and no. There are two reasons why you don't really want to do that. The first one is pretty simple: aesthetics. Because the building then tries to actually connect to every single connection and building you can find. Let me show you that very quickly. You have maybe even noticed it already yourself. When you were activating this, you can see how it's now trying to connect to all the connections. And when you are doing this for a while, you will have bridges, ladders, and pathways all over the map. Look at this. Like, this house does not need 3 connections, especially because it's not even a production house. And that slowly but surely makes your pirate cove look kind of horrid, because you have just bridges and ladders literally everywhere. So you really want to deactivate that for the aesthetics. But I know that some people now will go, but Mo, I don't care about aesthetics. Cool. Let's talk about the practical reason for this, because that is much bigger. Whenever you're putting down a building, as I said, that building will try to find like all the connections. I have to find a building which is producing. There we go. And it will automatically try to connect to all the things, right? And that's not always the fastest, especially later on. Let's say I would have just allowed the game to do the automatic connection here. Then I would probably just have this bridge, or maybe even this bridge, going over to my houses. Why is that a problem? Because my pirates with the stone would have gone over here to the bridge, would have gone to the houses, would go over here. This is where the connection started. Then they would go down there. Then they would follow this path, will go up here again, and they would finally reach their destination after 5 minutes. That's horrible. That's not what you want. And so I did build a manual connection, just going over here, going up here, and then they can just walk directly to their destination. Far less connections, a much faster path, and yes, it is still quite far away. This is why I say you want to have at least like a warehouse or some other production nearby, which can bring the stone to your expanding empire faster. But if you have to take long pathways, make it snappy. Do it yourself and just make sure that they have the fastest path ahead of them, right? Oh, and one more thing. I know the game is telling you that, but let's be honest here. Who reads nowadays? Paths are the fastest way to get from A to B. Of course, later on, when you are unlocking more in your compass, you will, of course, have things which are even faster. But this is for beginners, right? This is not a mid or end game guide. So, yeah, paths are the fastest. Now, with that said, is it worth it? I haven't really seen that yet because you were wasting basically space on areas where you have to build special buildings, right? And I don't know if it is worth it, but it is something to keep in mind. So, with all that said, this should probably help you to understand how to, at least till mid game, easily avoid a logistic disaster. And then we have to take a later look where I have unlocked all the different fast transport possibilities and which one is the best to use, but that is in a different video because this one is already long enough. With that said, we're at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it helpful. If you still have some questions or some tips you can give to other players, do that down below in the comments. And also, if you enjoyed the video, please do leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, you want to see more Corsair Cove guides and also live streams we are doing here, I would appreciate if you subscribe. If you want to see other strategy, management, and building games, well, that's great because we are doing the same thing here on the Mole Under Management channel. With that said, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.